Evening, Chelsea and John. Michael here. It's about just before 10 o'clock on Wednesday night, but I wanted to be able to get this through to you only because of our conversation earlier today. I felt that I didn't want to leave you with really without a solution to some of the problems that we went through today. But I'm also on site tomorrow with a client. Then I've got another client on site with them Friday, and then I'm doing exactly the same as I'm proposing to you now with a brand new client on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week, I'm fully committed as well. So I wanted to make sure that I could get this through to you, and 10 o'clock at night, that's when I'm sending you through this proposal. So this next proposal is probably going to go for about, I'm going to try and make it 45, 50 minutes. Normally it's an hour. I will try and just cut it down for you, and we'll just go through and give you an overview of what it is that I'm proposing, because based on the information that we spoke about today, I think that I can certainly help. I can certainly identify some of the issues, put some systems and processes in place, and try and help Chelsea with a whole range of different things. I can see the frustration is probably the word that I want to look for. I could see the frustration in your eyes today when we were chatting around, and it's not something which I'm not familiar with. If you have a look back through my background, I owned an agency for about 15 years and then sold it 2015. Had a really ordinary agency, and then I've had a really good agency winning awards and smooth and systemized. And I can certainly tell you which one I preferred, and the one that actually made me more money. And the one that made me more money was the one that I sold, and I sold at a great price after winning the awards and fixing it up. And now that's what I do. I just go around to different offices and spend time either troubleshooting, training, conferences, speaking. But the last 12 months has really been around the same problems, and we'll go through those in a second. So the operational health check, and that's what I call it, a health check. There are some people that'll do a health check in a couple of hours. There's a few that'll do it in a half day, and I'm not quite sure what they cover off in that period of time, because when I'm spending time in an office, I really become a set of eyes across the business, as though I'm brand new, sort of looking straight through in, and there's a couple of ways that I do this. So firstly, I would normally spend time on site, but the last 18 months due to COVID, or probably nearly 2 years now due to COVID, I've done very few of the on-site inspections, so now it's all remote. And the framework is this. So it takes 14 days to do the health check, of which 7 actual days are doing the work, and there's a bit of time in there for reviewing the findings and a director's review. So what I do is I send you through a checklist, and that checklist will have about 30, 40 documents that I require. I'll set up a Google Drive. That Google Drive will then have all the different subfolders. I share that with you. You would then go through into Property Tree and pull all the data out. You go into Inspection Express and you pull the condition report samples out. And I prefer to see ones that are live. I'm happy for you to redact the names. I really don't. If I was going out and taking the data off clients, I just wouldn't have any business. So who the client is doesn't really faze me, except for the fact that what I'm looking for is, when I'm going and have a look at the system, I want to check and make sure that the proof of ownership matches the authority, matches Property Tree, matches the tenancy details, matches the rent review, or matches a condition report, or matches VCAT. So I do follow the bouncing ball along the way. So I would normally spend, depending on the size of the rent roll, now given the fact that yours is in that sort of 400 to 500 range, I'm suggesting 2 full days is what I spend in the rent roll. We take the reports, and in that first week, whilst you're comparing reports, compiling, my team, I have 2 virtual assistants that work with me, and we take that data, we clean it, we put it into one of our own spreadsheets, which creates a whole range of dashboards. I'll show you that in a second. And we will actually pull that data out, analyze it, and from the data, I can get a fairly good understanding of the way in which the business runs, particularly around compliance, rent reviews, periodics, maintenance, VCAT, tenancy agreements, documents that are sitting inside of property tree and so forth. So what I also ask for, and I'll go through this in a second as well, is access to property tree, a lockdown version. Now, currently I've got, I think, 7 different agencies that I'm working with, 7 profiles in Property Me and 2 in Property Tree that I've got access to. Some of them I've got admin rights because I'm involved heavily in fixing their data. Others I'm just doing health checks for, and I get lockdown versions. So all I want to do is see it, and I'll take a screenshot. I'll take a screenshot of what the problem is. I'll put an arrow in there, and I'll say, we haven't got the right charge here. We've overcharged, undercharged, whatever it may be. Okay, so I spend 2 days analysing the data. I spend 2 days, and I also get I aim to, if you're electronic, if you're cloud-based, then if you're running with Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever it may be, I want to see that. With one office that I'm in at the moment, they've got me dialed straight into the server. So rather than me going in and just surmising how things work, I want to actually see. I'll follow a property file. So I want to go in and see where the property file is, where are the photographs, where are the comparables, when was it listed, do we have the right documentation sitting there on file, and the information there. If you're doing a lot of apartments, which I think you would be, where are the owner's corporation rules? Is there a move-in guide? Those sorts of things. That's the sort of stuff that I'm really looking for, and that would be sitting on, it may be sitting in your property tree, I doubt it, but it's more than likely sitting in a property folder. So what I want to look at is actually what the structure is inside of them. So 2 days on site, 1 day off site, 2 days in the business, 1 day where I'm actually sitting there and just trying to analyze it all and put together the report. And I'm writing the report all the time. So as a general rule, I do it in PowerPoint. This is PowerPoint, and I do it in PowerPoint because I can take the screenshot and I can put it straight in, and then I can write a little blurb of what it is that's wrong, put the arrows and so forth. And then I'll deliver that presentation. It's generally 2 to 3 hours of what I found and the recommendations. So I'll give you an example. Most recommendations are anywhere between 150 and 200 recommendations, depending on the office. And this, I'm talking about the last 2 years, really through COVID and really through the RTA. And also so recommendations. The most recent one I did was just before Christmas, and it was 208 recommendations. What we've then done is we've built a Trello board, which is a project management system, and we only use Trello. And I'll show you that in a moment as well. And it's a free software you can access, and we can then create boards. If we're building the boards for you, and we charge for that, but the actual software is free, and it's a fantastic tool. So when I'm in the office, what I'm looking at is there's 19 core areas within a business that I touch on. There's a few others, but 19 main ones that I really look at in the framework. I'll go through that in a moment. What I do ask is I say, why do we do it this way? And when I'm at an office, I'll say, why is it that you're doing it that way? Why do we do a routine that way? Why is it we've got documents stored that way? Why are we saving a file that way? What is the checklist? Who wrote the checklist? Why do we do it that way? And in almost all instances, the reasons the reason I get back from why we do it this way is because that's the way we've always done it. And that's not that's not good enough really when you're trying to look at how to rebuild a business. A couple of years ago, I was doing some presentations at conferences for a lot of the different franchise groups, and there was one that I spoke in New Zealand, I spoke in Queensland, I spoke here, I spoke in Sydney around this. It was all around and the framework around it was, if we were going to go and build a property management business today with what we know about real estate, would we build it the same way? And the answer is no. We would completely change it. So what I do is I go and have a look at it from the owner's point of view. What services are you providing? And does the business really, what services does the owner need? And does the business provide those services? So what I do is I review and question everything. Inside of here, so review and question everything, analyze, and if needed, modify what's in place you've got there now. So if something's working, we keep it. If not, then we change it. We'll either keep, create, or implement new systems and processes, very much around systems and processes. Rather than, and I got this today from Chelsea, but rather than going and getting the staff to I'll just go back there one more. Rather than getting the staff to always be asking questions, they should be able to go somewhere, and that's what the Trello boards do. So then what we do is we train, test, and measure for consistency. Really, really important. Bring up the next slide. So what the main issues that I see when I'm coming across into businesses right now is around the implementation of government legislation. Now, the problem with that is that we're 12 months in, and as a result of that, all of the operational activities that have been occurring since 28th March last year, all of those potentially might be putting you and your landlords in at risk. And what I did get today from Chelsea was the fact that there was a lot of resistance back through from the landlords or the rental providers. And there's a whole way to go around delivering the message and explaining to them. There's a way to do it really well, so you're going to get some buy-in, and there's also a way that actually creates a lot of conflict. And it sounds like there was a lot of conflict. I'm just going to move myself up there a little bit. It sounds like there was a lot of conflict, and also a lot of the landlords were resisting the fact that they had to fill in forms and documents and so forth. So the biggest of the issues, and you just really work through your own business inside of here and have a look and say, I know that Chelsea said there's a lot of staff turnover, so as a result, that would impact your morale. Government legislation, number one thing. Fees, didn't even talk about fees today, but that's part of the systems that I look at. What I do is I look at benchmarking and profitability points. How many of the properties of your 450 are actually profitable? So we draw an above the line, below the line in our spreadsheet and say, if we need to make, say, $120 a month in management fees, which is $14.40 in annual management fee income. If we need to do that, how many are currently at that fee? And therefore, if that's profitability, how many are profitable, how many are not? Vacancy, that was one of the things that we spoke about today. Retaining staff and finding new staff. Sometimes the problem's not going to be solved straight away. So what I look at there is maybe we have to have a look at cadetships and traineeships and those sorts of things. Really difficult when you're under the pump and you're just trying to get through each day to even think about how am I going to bring on a trainee. What we first do is we fix the business, stop the sort of stop the rot, but we really try and solidify what's happening on a day-to-day basis. Fix up the business, develop some systems, and then from there we can go in and really change it from being reactive to proactive. Rent roll growth, I don't know whether you've got that or not got that, whether you're losing properties, growing properties, those sorts of things. I'll tell you what I do see is I see a lot of people that bring on rentals, but they actually don't know what the minimum benchmark is. So as a result, they're bringing on either poor quality properties or they're bringing on ones that are not profitable. No, we didn't even discuss wages, and that's another thing here altogether, but systems, I don't think there's really this being followed. You might not be losing staff, you might be losing them to the actual, just out of the industry. Google reviews, I had a look at your Google reviews. There's probably some work to do there. This one over here, poor compliance procedures. Hopefully, you can see part of the areas in your business. And again, this is most real estate agents will either have one or two or three. Some actually, sadly, have 5, 6, 7, 8 of these. Not making enough from the property management department. That's a common issue. Most PM businesses that I see when they come to me aren't making money. So that's a real issue. Property landlords not complying with the compliance. That's a number one. Another one that is a big issue. Ongoing training and development for teams. So that the issue here is about staff retention. And often where I see a business that has high turnover, I look at it and I say, well, firstly, is it an attractive place to work? What is it that's being offered? Now, if it's just money, then that's not going to cut it because there are so many places at the moment that offer a lot of money. So what is it that's actually keeping people going? To give you an example, in an office last year, we actually, as part of our performance management, when we were going through and doing the reviews for the teams, I proposed to a lot of the staff that they should actually invest the time, energy in doing their full license, and that the company would pay for the time for them to do the training, but also pay for the course. So we had 3 of the staff that actually completed their full license. That's about developing your staff retention. It costs 2/3 of bugger all for us to do it as an office, but what we've done is we've retained the staff member. If you lose a staff member, one, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more in recruiting somebody else. You might have to pay a recruitment fee. so 10, 15 grand. You might also lose a couple of properties along the way, but what you've also done is you come back to the morale over there. You need to look at staff development and training for retention strategies. Losing managements to other agents, right at the moment, if you are losing management to other agents, that's probably okay if they're poor managements, but you don't want to lose the good ones. But I'm seeing a lot of properties that are being switched from agency to agency simply because some agents don't know what to ask for when they're taking on new managements. Right at the moment, you should be at your peak in your fees, no negotiation on fees. And that's one of the things I try to do is I train the staff on how to get and achieve good fees. I did mention to Chelsea today around the rent roll. Anyone that's actually not done any, I've done a lot of due diligence in the last 12 months, and there's a number of rent rolls that I've looked at which I've put a $0. I'm not a valuer, but I do a lot of DDs, and I've put a $0. I've said to my clients, you wouldn't pay for this for free because it's too much of a risk. And clients, a lot of directors think that their rent roll's worth X dollars, but after the RTA changes, it's in many instances it's worth zero. It's not saleable to anyone that's decent. You will find a wood duck and maybe someone that doesn't know what they're doing. They might buy it, and they might buy it at a high price. I'm just going to go through a couple of case scenarios here. This is an agency that I've been involved with now for we're into our second year. So what I did was I did a health check with them. They called me, they wanted to get some work on the RTA rollout, but also if I have a look in through to here, mum and dad were looking to retire. Family business, mum runs property management, dad's sales, they're nearly 70 and in their high 60s, and they're now retiring as of next week. The two kids, one runs the sales and the other one is in accounts. So now what's happened is when I first went there, we were looking at the legislation compliance. They use Property Tree, and we actually they use Inspection Express, and we went through and we updated. So they had 650 properties. We updated all the management authorities. Now, what I will tell you is that we had a lot of fallout from landlords because it was an 18-year-old business. It says 15, but it was about sort of 15, 16 years. It was a business that had really never gone and updated their management authorities, and some of them were really quite old, and as a result of that, landlords didn't want to do the compliance. They thought they could still just shove a stick into the smoke detector, and so we did lose a lot of properties, but what we are doing now, so we lost one landlord which had 50 properties, and it was a builder who was on a ridiculous 4% management fee inclusive of GST, no advertising and no other fees. Was a difficult landlord, would never fix any of the properties even though they were a builder, didn't want to do the compliance because they thought they could do all of those things, and as a result they took their 50 properties elsewhere. They didn't want to fill in more management authorities, so they went to someone else and did that. The logic isn't really quite as smart there, but they just didn't want to increase the fees. I wasn't prepared to keep the managements at 4%, and what I did was I was able to highlight to the clients. At first they thought it was good to have them because they were a big portfolio, but when I went through and showed them that each one of those properties was actually costing us money, it was almost half of a portfolio of one person to manage the properties, and we're going backwards by managing them. So what we've done is we've employed 2 virtual staff in the Philippines. They're now helping out, and we've got less properties, more same money, interestingly enough, now, because we've gone back, we've increased some fees and increased the particularly the ancillary fees, and now for the whole year now, all of the new business has been at full fees and then some. And the letting fees are great as well. So we implemented we put the 2 VAs in, we developed Trello board systems for them. Now, with the Trello boards, I'll go through and show you the Trello boards, but what it is I've been working on Trello, I've been using Trello for nearly 5 years. I've created a whole system. It's like buying a manual. It's like an off-the-shelf manual. You're buying a procedures process. So I've been building this for 5 years, and I can come in and build one bespoke for you. It'll cost you 100 grand. It'll take you 2 years to build, maybe 3, and you might get it to a stage to where it is right at the moment. Or I sell the white label one. I have it all in my branding. And basically what I do when I'm working with clients is that they can actually buy the boards when I'm as part of the consultancy. I sell the boards, they're not expensive. So for 3 boards, $2,500. And it's very, very easy to just plug it straight in. And within a couple of weeks, the staff are really familiar with the whole range of systems. If we want to modify those, it's really easy to do, but rather than you going and building from scratch. So that's what I do, is I actually put a lot of products and systems and procedures and so forth into offices. So during my 4 or 5 months of lockdown in 2020 and then again in 2021, I spent a fair bit of time just developing and writing systems, which is my business. I'm a systems person and implement them into PM businesses. Well, okay, so new management authorities, we did all the gas, electric, the minimum standards, new file structure. So we moved everything to cloud-based, away from being physical files, profitability benchmarks, and we've allowed the directors to be able to move on. I'm now working in this particular business on a 12-month contract. I'm now running as a virtual GM. The mum and dad are now retiring. As I said, of next week, they go on long service leave, 6 months, and I've stepped into the role to work with the daughter and the son at an executive level, not as a board member, but I'll be running. I'm part of the management team and helping the staff with the integration, and also now I'm taking on the sales role and business development. So I'm training the BDMs, and I'm actually now training the sales team as well. So that one's a really good gig, and I'm working on a 12-month project where I've done the health check, and then we spent a bit of time fixing it up. It's running really well. The PM department is running like clockwork now. It wasn't when I got there, but it is now, and now I'm overseeing the whole business. This particular agency here was a startup. 2 rent rolls were purchased from a builder developer. This is the company here. And I did a health check here. I was introduced by the broker that actually had purchased the rent roll, that sold the rent roll to them. And it was a Chinese-based agency, and the staff didn't know what they were doing. Lack of legislation. They didn't even know where to find the act actually on Google, which I was surprised at. And low fees. Really, there was no compliance. The documents that they had bought were garbage. And we had to go through and rebuild. So they were using Property Me, and the staff didn't know how to use Property Me. And what had happened was the developer had 2 extra staff that were running some of their marketing, and they said, okay, we're going to build a rent roll. You can learn how to be property managers. So I was training a team leader plus the staff, and then we grew the business. We spent about 4 months in that business after we did the health check, and I was doing 2 training sessions a week with them. And initially what I was doing was a couple of days on site, and then in the first month, and it sort of tapered back down. So I'm very much hands-on. I'm in with the staff. I'm training the staff. We did a Monday morning session where I was running the property management meetings with them, and then a Friday afternoon for 2.5 hours, we did a training session every week for the 4 months, and we really fast-tracked their growth. We fast-tracked their new business. We also made sure that we were really ultra compliant. That gave us the impetus to be able to go off and buy another rent roll. Now, they had about 550, 600 at this stage from the 2 smaller ones. We went and bought a rent roll of 950. I did the due diligence on that one, and there were some massive issues around the authorities, so we had to fix those up, and then we brought those in to make sure. And the reason why I say that is because what I'd said to the company here was that we've spent 4 or 5 months building your business and fixing it. You don't want to take on something else that's not going to integrate well. So what we made sure was we spent a lot of time with this new agency saying this is the way it needs to work when we integrate the 2 together. And it's worked really, really well. Again, implemented VAs, put Trello boards in, benchmarking systems, staff onboarding, weekly training, operational standards, and I was involved in the recruitment of the last couple of staff. This agency over here, and this is the last of the. I just want to give you an overview of how it starts and what they end up with. Now, this agency's got about 2,500 properties now. I've not been there for a while, but I did the rollout with them last year. So I did a 6-week program where I did a 6-week program here as well, 6-week program there, where I did a couple of workshops. I did some stuff inside their office. I helped them with their documents and their compliance. and then and they were off and running. Because I'd already done the work with them, this was really just about skill set, and often it was around that they had a problem and I'd come through and do some coaching with them. This office here, second generation, and it was poorly run, and they were in the process of trying to sell the rent roll, but not successfully. And look, it turns out when I went in and did the health check for this particular office, none of all their management authorities, because it was such an old business, some of them were a one-page carbon copied from 20 years ago, before GST. So we had to go through before, even though they were trying to sell the rent roll with a broker, there was no way it would have gone through. Anyone that did a proper DD on it would have just laughed at the files. So I spent 18 months with this business, because in the end, the director almost stood aside. We replaced the sales manager, and I stood in there, and I ended up running the sales team, admin, recruitment. I met on a monthly basis with the accountants and the directors and sales manager, and then we got rid of the sales manager, and then effectively was the director and myself, and I proposed to them, they were making more money out of developments, this is a Sunbury-based agency, they were making more money out of land that they'd acquired over the years, and subdividing that off into developments. And I said, why don't we just sell the rent roll? It's not doing us any favours. You're paying me to come out here and babysit something just because of the family name. So I took it to market and integrated that. We did really, really well. We got a high multiple, and we sold it and integrated it into Barry Plan. So you can see where it starts out in the fact that what I do is I go in and do the health check to give it at least a base as to where the business is at. When I'm looking at it from a business point of view, I look at it from a customer. So what is it? What does the business offer? What are the services? Is it offering a good level of service, and so forth? So that's what I'm really trying to focus on from a business point of view. And now this is a high performing business. So I go from today to 90 days or 120 days, high performing businesses. We have a look at the infrastructure, the team, the offices. Now, one of the things I pick up often when I go to a business, I'm at the moment, I've just put away a third screen, but I've got one screen there, one screen here, one screen here, and that's a 40-inch, 32-inch screen. So it's not like it's a small TV. I'm looking at efficiencies. I'm on the computer all day. And I see so many offices, they're all trying to run around on little laptops, and or they're running on a laptop and then a small, a shitty old screen that doesn't work, and they've got a dodgy mouse, and so it's and you're running Property Me or Property Tree, and you've got IRE, you've got Inspection Express, and you've got all these apps, and we're running on old systems. So I'm in an office at the moment where I've just gone through, there's 20 staff and there's 10 in the property management, across the board, admin and property management. And one of the first recommendations was that everyone needed dual screens. And so what I did was I showed them the dual screens that I was using. I just showed them the efficiency, and I got the director to use a dual screen for themselves. And after using it for a day, she's come back, she says, yeah, I don't know why I've been so reluctant to do that. And now they're getting all dual screens. The team, what have we got from a team? So infrastructure, office facilities, team. Then we've got technology. Most offices don't know how to use the technology they've got, particularly around their property management software. I go back to a reel. They were using Property Me. They weren't using reminders. They weren't using labels, and all of their reports, they were doing spreadsheets. And as a result of that, they were always missing things out. So I've got an office at the moment that does everything into Trello instead of using their property management system. It doesn't make sense. And again, it comes back to, why do you do it? Oh, we've always done it that way. So then I look at the IP. What is it about your business that sets you apart? And often when I do a survey, often the staff can't tell me why would somebody come and use your business. They've got no idea. And what that says to me is that there is no business strategy. There's no business clearly defined business strategy. What are the 5 points that actually separate your business from your competitors? Firstly, who are your competitors? And often I've got a survey which I send out to the staff as part of the health check, and I get the staff to actually report back to me, who are your competitors? Now, and I'll put into the report the top 5 competitors. I might get 20 of the top 5 competitors because everyone's got different competitors. That says to me that there really isn't a strategy. You don't know who your competitors are. And you also got no idea of what makes you different. So as a result, what tends to happen, if you can't clearly articulate why you are different, then your owners will articulate that by your fees, and they'll go into lower fees. What are your break-even points? That's really important. Come back through to here. How many properties are non-profit producing? Particularly last year, I do a lot of work with franchise groups and training. So I've been involved in Remax. I've been involved in IJ Hooker. I've been involved last year. I did it at Sweeney's. The rollout of the introduction to their offices. I was involved with Fletcher's for 12 months with their training, all their property management training. And with the Sweeney's group, and this is why I brought it to your attention, is that what I did say was that the sales guys were going to have a bumper year if they were smart, because there'll be a lot of landlords that were not interested in actually complying with the rental minimum standards or the property compliance. So as a result of that, they were great properties to then take on board and then sell. Now, the Sweeney's guys weren't overly switched on to that until we'd done some workshopping with them. But when I did that with Ristic last year, what we ended up doing, we picked up 32 properties off the rent roll and we sold. That was a great, normally it's about 15, 18 properties a year that will come off the rent roll and then we'll sell off the rent rolls. 32 properties that we sold last year. And the reason for that is because there are a number of landlords that we identified really early when we did the process. We identified these are landlords that just aren't going to want to comply, and as a result, the sales team need to get in and have a chat with them about potentially selling. And then we have a look at the rent roll asset. Is it? I guess what is the asset and what is the value of the business? Now, many of these things here you could probably do yourself. If you had the time and energy, you could probably sit down and you weren't focused on everything else. But when Chelsea said to me today she was managing 250 properties, that I was gobsmacked. A property manager on their own probably couldn't do that. But a property manager on their own as a department manager trying to fix up with staff and COVID and compliance, it's not practical. So what I'm suggesting is that there's nothing that I'm going to bring into here that you would look back and say, oh wow, there's a brand new whiz-bang service or product. It's just experience and clean eyes. I'm coming in with absolute clean eyes. I use this Albert Einstein quote: "You can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that was used to create them." So the reasons why I bring this up is because when I go to an office, and I'll give you a great example. I went to an office years ago, and I pulled out the management authorities, and I said, I don't understand this. There's 4 or 5 properties that are linked to look like they're similar names. They're on old pre-GST management authorities. So there was no assignment clause. There was no GST on there. They were in a different Italian name. It was an Italian office that I was in, and they were using Property Tree. And so Property Tree's different here to what's on the notes, and I said it's just a mess. And they said to me, "Oh, we've had these properties for over 20 years. These were mum and dad. Mum and dad have both died. We've been to the directors, 3 brothers. They said we've been to the funerals, and 2 of the properties were left to the kids, to the daughter. 2 of the properties were left to the son, and 1 was joint." But the son doesn't want to be involved. The daughter does everything, so that's why her name's in the system. And but the authorities would never updated them. And when I explained to them that the value of that is 0, and more importantly, if Consumer Affairs walked in, they would probably actually say to them, you need to refund all of those fees because you no longer have a management authority. They'd never gone and got any of the documentation when the parents had died, and it was just a dog's breakfast. And this is what I mean by you can't solve problems with the same eyes that created them. And this is where I come in with absolute clean, fresh eyes. There might be something in your business which is actually very similar, particularly if it's been around for a while. So here's the team that I have. So Roger just finished up with me a couple of weeks ago, and just over the Christmas break. So I'm just recruiting a new VA. So these guys, these 2 staff, they've just finished up. We're about 3 hours behind in the Philippines to time-wise. They've just finished up working. They started about 11 o'clock in the morning and they finished sort of generally around that sort of 7 o'clock, thereabouts 8 o'clock at night. And they work with me full-time. And as I said, normally I've got a team of 3. My core philosophy, to work with business owners and decision makers to make more money with less effort, because running a property management department or running a business is really tough anyway. But most businesses that I see when I go in there make it much tougher because of the way they run. So there is an easier way to do it. You've just got to fix a few things. And what I try to do is I implement agency best practice principles to get the most out of your team and your staff and your resources. Make more money with less effort. That's the philosophy. I'm not going to read this, but you can sort of get an understanding of what it is that I will be able to produce when I'm inside your business. What I do want to just highlight here is these two things here. I'll just go through there, and it's the landlord and tenant file audits. And what I do is I do an audit, and I'll show you this in a second. I do an audit of files and some sample files. So I'm sending you this document through, you can read it as well. I do an audit of sample files as well. That's why I need access to your Google Drive server or whatever it may be, Dropbox, and also to Property Tree. So I do an audit in the spreadsheet that I have. So what I would ask for initially is all the data that comes out, we create the dashboards, and then I'll randomly audit some properties. What I typically do is go to your internet and your website and have a look at the properties that are currently vacant, and because they're the ones that should have the freshest of the documentation. Okay, so what I'm looking at is when I'm coming into the business, I look at it from the eyes of 6 different stakeholders. So what I do is I look at it for a brand new employee, and I asked the question today of Chelsea, if I was to start with you today, how would I know what I need to do? Do I have to come and ask you? Is there written documentation? Is there an induction program? All of that. And if you're in salvation mode or reactive mode, you probably don't have any of that. So what happens is you go out there, you recruit a brand new person, and in day one, you've lost them already. They might stay for 6 months or 12 months, but they're out of there, they're checked out. Because there's so many offices that are running really smoothly that have got good systems. I did some interviews and did some work with an agency in St Kilda, a really good, I did all of Hocking Stewart's property management training for about 18 months, and they're now Bell Real Estate, and Bell Real Estate St Kilda. It's award winning, and what they do down there, and South Yarra does the same thing, and Richmond, which is they're 3 leading offices in the network. What they do is they have, for the first 7 days of the portfolio of the brand new induction, the person doesn't touch a property. They don't speak to anyone. All they do is they mirror their staff for the first 7 days. So they spend time in receptions, they spend time in accounts, spend time with the property managers, they'll spend time in their portfolio, they spend time with the sales guys, spend time going out doing listing presentations with new business. For the first 7 days, all they do is they get really familiar with the business. And where are the systems, where are the forms, where are the documents, how does the software work? So for 7 full days, now I see some offices that their induction program starts at 9, by 9:15, they're done. And sadly, the person's working with someone else's email. It's a dog of a portfolio, and business cards, they haven't got any. Not that we're using business cards anymore, but the person's profile's not set up, and IT's trying to set them up by lunchtime. It doesn't work. Existing staff. So from an eyes of existing staff, from your landlord customers, as I said before, transparency and services. From your renters, what are you doing for your renters? Too many offices only focus on their landlords because that's where the income comes from, and they miss the rest of their database, which is their tenants. From the business owner's point of view, so I look at it from an owner's and principal's point of view, and I ask this question here: are the business owners being fairly rewarded for their time, effort, experience, risk, and capital? Right at the moment, I've underlined risk mainly because risk is the biggest of the issues with the amount of fines that are potentially available. And as a result of that, I see very few offices when I first get to them that the risk, that firstly the directors are even aware of the risk. Once I go through and highlight the risks to them, particularly on some of the fines, some of the fines are $55,000 per instance or $11,000 per instance. And I'll show you one later on that I did a due diligence on, where there was a bond breaches, and they were fined $10,000 by 8 breaches, and it was $80,000. I got called into Hocking Stewart in Richmond after they were fined over $800,000 in underquoting, and I'm sure the same thing's going to happen with Consumer Affairs when they start to come out and do site inspections. But what I also look at is what's the business model? Is it sale ready? Is it a well-run business, or is it a fixer-upper? So the question that I ask here of the business owners is, what value do you put on the business? What multiplier? And I think in this market, a really good rent roll should be somewhere between the $3.2, $3.3, maybe $3.5, $3.50 multiplier. Poor ones are running at around that 2s, and I'm seeing lots of those. So where do you see yourself now? And often a business owner will say, well, I think I'm in a $3.50 model, and I say, great, fantastic, that's what you want to sell it. Would you, knowing what you know about your business, would you buy your own business back at $3.50? And the answer is generally no. So that just means that there's incongruence there. If you're not prepared, it's like a person who's got a house, knows that there's cracks, there's need under stumping, knows that there's dodgy wiring, and then wants to sell it for a bomb, and but knows all these things are wrong with the business. So it just doesn't make sense. So have a look at the business strategy. What are the processes? What's the business plan? Now, often there isn't a business plan. What is the growth plan? What's the marketing plan? What's the new business plan? What's the staff retention plan? All those sorts of things. Here are the 19 core areas that I focus on. And again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I spend a lot of time in and around the HR side, checklists, operational templates, compliance, risk management, branding, that sort of stuff. One of the very first things I do is I pull out, and I've already done it now, I pull out from the agent, from the BLA, what the public agent register is, so what the license is. And often it's not uncommon for me to go to a business and I'll use this for example. You might find, and it might already be the case, the agency company name and the branding and the trading name are very, very different. Some of them are the same. But then when I go and I have a look at the management authorities, and it's completely different. So I was with an agency not that long ago that had a BDM, and for some reason the BDM was never actually added onto the license. So for 2 years the BDM was actually signing up management authorities but wasn't on the license. So all those management authorities sadly are invalid and had to be redone anyway. So we were updating them, but invalid, unenforceable and invalid, could never be sold. And again, if Consumer Affairs walked in, then they would actually basically say, you need to refund all the money on all those properties. So you would have been managing properties for 2 years for free and paying a business development manager to go off and do it, simply because someone never registered that person properly on the Business Licensing Authority. HR, staff forms, I go through and do some audits on staff files. The amount of stuff that I see in staff files, or eligibility to act, or the police check wasn't there, or there isn't a proper contract, or no position description, there's no performance management reviews, those sorts of things. The other thing I do is I send out a confidential survey to all the team members, all the ones, and also the directors as well. And I send that through, and then I get that information, but it's confidential. So what I do is I say to the staff, this is confidential. I'm gonna use the information for my own viewing only, and I will not be discussing this with I won't be disclosing what was said. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out snippets of it and put it back into the report. Sometimes I can change the wording around. If I've got 3 staff members all say the same thing, then what I'll do is I'll collate that and then put that into the report. But I want the staff to know, and this is why I say that it's confidential, and I'm pretty open about this, and I include the directors into the email when I send it to the staff, and I say, I'm very open about saying I will not disclose what is said, because I really want them to be honest. If they're honest with me, I can actually work with that. If they give me garbage, I can't help them with that. All I'm going to do is focus on what they tell me. Policies, procedures, operational guidelines. Often when I go to an office, I talk to them about pre-vacate inspections, and many offices don't do them. In this business, in this market at the moment, particularly around rental minimum standards compliance, it's critical that when you get a notice to vacate, you do a pre-vacate inspection, because you just don't know what you're going to be opening yourself up into. And you also need to make sure that the photographs are reflective of what the property looks like, and otherwise you end up with this false and misleading advertising as well. So there's a whole range of things there that the pre-vacate needs to cover off on, but it's an internal operational guideline. So, as part of my notice to vacate procedure is that we actually run with a pre-vacate inspection. Here's the Trello board. I won't go too much into that, except for the fact that it's like an operationals manual. So here we've got in through to here. Let's just go through here a couple of things so you might be able to see. So operational standards, proof of ownership required for every property. Rent payment method must be clearly stated in the agreement. 72 hours is more than enough time for a final vacate to occur. This becomes operational standards. We've got our frequently asked questions over here. When can we release keys to another agent when we've lost management? Why have I done that? Because I've been in an office where some knucklehead has given the keys across before we've actually had all of the invoices in, and then we've tried to chase for plumbing bills. So I went and wrote that down, and here's the standard. Does the rental provider have to repair broken or damaged appliances before a renter moves in? Why did I come up with that one? Because that's happened. Creating a compliant, valid and enforceable agreement. So I'm just going to drop that back again there. Why we've got that? Because it's important. We've got employment policies over here. We've got checklists. We've got audit procedures, internal forms, notice to vacate form. And each one of these has got a checklist inside of here. So if we have a look, there's 113 points, 80 points, 45 points, 108, 78. They're checklists, they're procedures as we go through. This is what I try and implement, and this is what's available to for my clients to purchase directly, or as I said, I'm happy to spend the next 3 years, 4 years building one for you. It's cost you 100 grand. Easily cost me. It's cost me well over $100,000 to put this together. I've been building it for years. Some of these, one individual, I did one yesterday. One card was 5 hours of my time, and I charged $220 an hour for consulting. So 5 hours is $1,100 just in that, and I haven't recorded the training video yet. And this is the sort of stuff that I say that you just can't, you wouldn't be able to go off and duplicate it. But because I'm able to do it on volume, that's what makes sense. This is our operations board, and my approach to that is that is you let the staff do all of their work for the month, and at the end of the month, the department manager, their role really should be going through and auditing. So we've got a brand new property. If you've listed 20 properties, audit 10. If you've got 4 portfolios, you might do 12. So 3, 3, 3, and 3, and you're just going to audit the portfolios. Make sure that the information is correct. Make sure that they've done all the right things. And if they haven't, send it back to them and say, guys, you need to fix this up. It's better to find out that the condition report wasn't done right in the first couple of weeks rather than worry about it in 12 months' time. So that's the way in which I try and train the team, and it also it changes their behavior. So the psychology for the PMs is that they know that at the end of each month that their portfolio is going to be, their activities are going to be audited. I don't micromanage anyone. I say, you know, at the start of the month, we sit down with the team member and go through and say, how many routines you got? You got 25? Good. How are you going to do that? How many rent reviews you got? 30? Good. How are you going to do that? What's your plan? I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. I'm employing you to do your job. You go off and do it. And at the end of the month, what I'll do is going to audit back, randomly audit any of the things you're not compliant with. They get back. And if you've got some real issues, then we've got some performance management issues. Technology, resources, equipment, we have a look at those sorts of things. As I said at the beginning, what I do is I send you through a list of reports. So I ask you to create, pull these reports together. You know, some compliance and landlord reports, arrears, properties that are being sold. What was your churn last year? You know, so how many properties did you lose? How many properties do you actually normally lose? Most agencies lose that sort of 8 to 10 to 12%, and it's a bit higher last year because of COVID and people moving back in, and you know, obviously the financial status of many of the landlords is a bit tough, so they didn't want to keep the property. So in that scenario, there was a higher churn. What I ask for is a property tree access, so that I can actually just go, I've got the profile already, and just go back through. I do a rent roll file audit and come up with some analytics. This is what we do for one particular landlord file. So this is part of our spreadsheet. This is one of the templates. You know, we have a look at the authority. Is it enforceable? Is it valid? Has it been scanned in the system? Management authority, is it the same as the authority as it is in property tree? Is there a proof of ownership on file? Is there a level of service on file? Is the level of service current? Has it been signed? Is there an owner's instruction on file? Does it have the bank details? Do the bank details match property tree? Is there an authority to sign on behalf of the owners? Is there a minimum standards, property disclosure, all that sort of stuff? And carbon monoxide, gas, landlord, electrical safety, landlord's insurance. Are they expired? Are they missing? Do you have authorities? That's the sort of stuff that I'm looking for there. Tenant file, same sorts of things. So is the file... is it compliant? Now, when I went through with Chelsea today, we were talking about the tenant assignment and the break lease. So I could almost guarantee rubber stamp if I did 100 files, not that I can, but if I audited 100 files of 100 leases that you've done in the last 12 months, all 100 of those would be non-compliant because you can't charge the tenant any fees. The landlord has to, and you have to get it reimbursed back through to them. So all your files, all your agreements, every one of them wouldn't stack up. So yeah, ingoing condition report. So they've got photographs. Is that signed? I know you're using Inspection Express. That's great. And do you have them coming back? And if they're not coming back, why not? Where's the proof of ownership, proof of red book? Have you got that? Disclosure statements. Have you got that? OC rules. Are you attaching those to the leases? In the advertising, are you writing down that there's an OC? Embedded networks. Do you have all of that? Bonds, bond receipts, that sort of stuff. I do a full audit of the bonds. Then what we do is we come up with the dashboards. Now I'm not going to go through all these, but it gives a bit of a breakup of the portfolio. This is why I need all the files, all the data, put it into our spreadsheet. We get our dashboards. So let fees, advertising fees, benchmark. See this one here, 46 properties above and 54 properties were below the benchmark. This business is going broke, on that one. And it doesn't matter what your management fee is as an average. It looks at how many properties are you actually making money on. 42 are on full fees and 40 on discounted fees. So this is where we really play with the BDM strategies as well. How many properties were assignable? How many were not? So we hadn't finished the full audit when we did the snapshot here, but 58 were not assignable. So in this particular business here, has zero value. Zero. You're not going to buy a rent roll for 100 properties and only have 12 come across that are assignable. Pay for 12, get all 100, but pay for 12. No one's going to sell that. So this is where a lot of principals don't really fully understand what their business is. How many of your properties were in arrears? 16 were in arrears. 16% in arrears, and I hadn't actually done 30% of the files. Business fails, exit strategy. Business should always be being prepared for an exit sale. I don't necessarily think that I don't think you should be trying to sell it, and that's not the aim of this, but it should be sale ready, and that's the plan. Okay, so what I'm looking at is the management authorities. As I said, making sure the name actually matches the license and the company registration, ABN. I was with an office just recently, and they were using an old ACN and ABN, completely different to what the company was. Invalid. The documents are invalid. So they've got 850 files in the last couple of years. The ABN for some reason was changed, and no one's ever picked it up. So these are the sorts of things where I come in with clean eyes and try and look. I'm not going to say I'll find everything, but with your documents, if you've got the right information, if you've got the right management authorities, you're using Inspection Express, I can tell you straight away that your authorities won't be great because the Inspection Express ones, I've always had to modify those. Okay, new business growth, financial metrics, that sort of stuff. I'll look at the fee schedule. That's really important to go back through, and I've been working on this all day for a client. We're just rewriting their fee schedule. Our fee schedule is 7 pages. Here it says 6, but it's 7 pages. And what I do is I go through and we've created, there's different iterations. You see that one's actually V5, so version 5. The one I'm working on at the moment is version 7. With the fee schedules inside of here, what we've got is we want to make sure that the clients are making money when they're from each one of the properties, and they've been signed and so forth. Owner's instruction form. Do you have authority to sign? Do you have your landlord's authority for smoke, gas, electric, all those sorts of things? If you're outsourcing it all to Smart House, almost guaranteed that your properties won't be compliant. If your trades register, where's that up to as well? Too many businesses have got 150 trades on their property software, and they've only got insurance for 10 or 15. Weaknesses, risk management for the weaknesses. The number of, here's that agency down here, and I'm setting this through to you so you can actually get a feel for it. $80,000 in fines for one agency over here. There was $720,000 in fines there. I haven't put the Hocking Stewart ones in there because they're clients. Well, they were clients afterwards. That's $800,000. The Fletcher's Group was over $700,000 as well. So consumer affairs certainly do go out there and do them. These are documents that I've actually found from on-site inspections. So this particular one here, It's a 005, so it's not the 005A. It doesn't have the authority to assign. And in this one, he has no continuing authority, no management. So it was an old authority sitting inside of there, worth 0. This one here was an interesting one. It's the REIV document. It was signed up in 2014. It has referred to the management fee, the marketing expenses, but it wasn't attached. Couldn't find it. So again, no ancillary fees. And this one over here, it's a bit hard to read, but the fees weren't expressed correctly, so invalid. There's a key register that I've pulled out from an audit. And what the hell can you do with that? And that's a key box, which I found really interesting because that's their key cabinet. When I spoke to them, I said, what happens there? They said, oh, we lock that each night. And it's like, you can get these from Bunnings and open them up with a screwdriver. It's not bolted to the wall. It just sits there. And there's no security there whatsoever. Yes, the keys are all locked away, but how hard would it be for someone to take this and then just go through their rent roll? There's not that many there. Find the properties online. Just need to go back through your REA letting history and randomly go there and start opening up properties. Not that difficult. Not even bolted to the bloody wall. Here's the ID for a property from an owner's an application. What can you do with that one? All right, sales team. If you've got a sales team, I'll have a quick look at that, but it's predominantly PM. These are some of the offices and some of the brands that I've actually worked with over the years. The first part of the consultancy is the health check. And every office is very, very different. I do the health check to start off with because then what I can do is understand what the business needs. But then we do a rollout. So normally I'll work on a 91-20-day program, 3 to 4 months, and it's not full time, of course. One, it's not needed. Second to that, it's very expensive, but more importantly, there's some time that needs to occur. So I might get in there and say, okay, we need to do, well, I know already we have to do the 450 new management authorities, but we're not going to do that all at once because you just implode. You don't have the resource, don't have the time. So what you need to do is we look at it and say, well, if we've got 50 properties that have either been advertising at the moment for rent, that have got a rent review or a lease renewal, let's do those 50 first. So let's do that for the first month. Let's get the 50 out of the way. Let's get our disclosure documents. We get our compliance, our rental minimum standards, and we work on the 50. And then next month we do the next ones, and then we do the next ones, and then we do it that way. What we'll do is we look at it. If we've got a multiple landlord, then we'll do all of their properties together, even though when there's one trigger that occurs. But the trigger is really all the properties you've currently got online. You need to get those ones done first. So we do the health check and we do the audit and you've got a report. And then we have a look at the VAs. VAs will actually save you a lot of time and money. And they're also very process orientated as long as you've got systems. If you're not structured and you don't have any systems, you don't have the resources, VAs will be the worst thing for you. You'll waste your money. But the way that I work with an actual company. I've aligned myself with a company that provides mine. And most of the offices that I'm involved in, we get 2 VAs, one to help the property management team and one initially to help with the rollout of what I'm doing, all the grunt work and the paperwork. And then it starts to take some pressure off the PM team. Virtual staff are significantly less. It's sort of around that sort of $25,000, $28,000, including GST per annum, instead of $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for a staff member. We have a look at the fee maximisation. So it's a recruitment of the staff, development, rent roll growth, fee maximisation, systems, and so forth. And then we look at the making the business sale ready. Not saying it's being sold, but making it sale ready. Okay. I'm going to fly through this last part. This is, if you haven't already done so, do some homework. I've been around for nearly 22 years and speak across the country. That was in New Zealand. That was on the Gold Coast for Ray White. That was for LPMA. O'Brien's, do a lot of work with O'Brien's group and their franchise network. Hocking Stewart was there for 18 months. That was 2020 in Queensland. For REIQ. I was at the REIV as a trainer for 18 months and taught all the professional compliance. So at the REIV and CPD point stuff. I didn't teach the agents rep, but I was there for 18 months as a trainer. Been a guest speaker at PMLR 3 times, and there I was there, PMLR, and there's the same slide that I was talking about, and for the realestate.com events as well. 2019, there was Elite Agent sends out a survey and asks for people to vote, the industry to vote who your top influencers are. And I was chuffed to be one of the top 50 across the country of the influencers. Let's just go through. There's more of information through to me. Not only have I been in my own business for 20 odd years, but 10 years with LPMA, Leading Property Managers of Australia, and 15 years with the REIV. When I was at the REIV, I had to go back and do my Cert 4 in training and assessment to look at adult learning principles, and that's really helped me out with a whole range of workshops and webinars, run webinars. This year I've got 22 webinars that have scheduled. And when I had the rent roll, we took out a number of awards, which are just sitting right behind me in through to here now. I'll go through how does it all work, and as I said, I've got a couple more slides and I'm done. The first thing we do is we come on, we send you through the reports. Now that's actually, I say day one, but it's actually over a week. So I send you through the reports, and then your staff will actually start to property mean, property tree, analyse them, and then send those back. I've said tree there, but it's me, but it's property tree for you. And my team will actually then take those documents. I'll move me over there. Take those documents, clean them, and put them into our spreadsheet, which is quite extensive. The spreadsheet, which is I've been working on the same template for nearly 4 years. It's the same document, the same template that I use for all of my offices, and it's the same one I use for all of my due diligence when I'm looking at rent roll analytics for a rent roll purchase or sale. So what we do is we take all the data, pop it into there, and it comes up with all those dashboards and the analytics in through to there. It gives you a really good snapshot of what the business is doing. Then it's 2 full days, so remote, and I'm going to propose there'll be a weekend. I'll send you through the dates as well, because at the moment I'm fully committed until the end of Feb with offices, and I'm just taking on a new office. So I can do these on a weekend, which I hadn't actually allocated, which is what I'm going to propose for you, but it's going to be in 2 weeks' time. And then I do a day off-site, again, not off-site, but just analysing all the reports. So effectively it's 3 full days in your business. I say 9 to 12 hours, but sometimes it's 2 days in just analysing and writing the report. And then I present the report through to you. And the VA team spends between 16 and 24. It's generally more than that. It's sometimes it's only 3 days hours. Sometimes it can be 4 days, 5 days, depending on the how we need to clean the data. So as I indicated, I work at $220 an hour, which is probably the same rate as your IT guy charges to come out and install your computers or your cabling. If I'm working as a straight off consultancy, if you wanted me to just analyse some work, wanted to do a health check, I spend an hour and a half today with Chelsea. If I was going to do a consultancy gig, I would charge something like that with $220 an hour. So that's what I do. Would have been different to what we did today, but it's $220 an hour. But if I'm working on a project, then it's $185, and I'll show you that in a second. Our VAs is $33 an hour. When I put VAs into your office, when I suggest you employ them directly through to the company, not through me. I just want the VAs so I need someone to do the work. So otherwise, we get VAs, and the rate there is about 13 plus GST, $13 an hour. My VAs have been with me for a couple of years, and they're trained. And I don't have to have someone sitting there. I can just give them the concept, and they know how to use the Trello. They've been with me for a while, and we've done through all of that. That's why I charge them out at $33 an hour. Also, I'd much rather you get your own because my guys are working across a number of different offices, and that's why I've got them at a charge out rate. Okay, so if I was to calculate the amount of hours, even just working on the minimum hours, 46 hours, if I worked on just the 30 and 16 here, or if we did the 62 hours, if I worked on that, it's $7,100 in through to there. But I know that that's a big impost. It's over a week's worth of work. That's what's spread over 2 weeks. I know that most officers will say no to that, so that's why I dropped this price down to $5,500. And the reasons why I know that is because if I go in there and do a good job, it generally always leads to work because I'm going to come out with the recommendations. I spend all the time forensically going into the business to understand the business, and then I can do the work. So it's $5,500. It's fixed. It's the same price for everyone. It's been the same price for a couple of years. One-off consultancy day rates $1,650. or the 220 an hour, and as the 1330. That's what I normally charge over here. But then I've got that. Then I drop that back when we're working on projects at 1395 or 185. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that now is because I charge the same for everyone, whether it's a big portfolio, little portfolio, it's the same day rate. And the reason why I'm comfortable with this is because I can work at different offices on different days, knowing that there's no difference in price. I haven't told somebody one thing versus another. As we come towards the back end, what we do then is I prepare an action plan, 45, 90, 120 day action plan, and then that's part of the director's report. And the benefits of actually working with me, in addition to being a consultant, trainer, due diligence, speaker, you're getting all of that at the same price. There's all the reviews. You can go through these. I'm not going to go through them now. You can go through, this is based off my Google review. People I've been involved with. I was with Fletcher's for 12 months. Khan, I'm with him right now. That's where you get the VAs from over in Auckland. I did some work over there, and I sold my business to Malcolm. Darren Hunter, you've probably heard of him. I like this here, what he says there. Michael Furlong is nationally recognised as the systems expert in the property management industry. Now, Darren's is a big player in the industry. His ability to systemise his company is legendary, but also challenging accepted norms and recreating them. This is that was from a little while ago, and that's when Darren came and had a look at what I was doing in my business. And now we work on the same field. We speak on the same platform and the same events. Same with Haley. I've been speaking at Haley's conference for the last couple of years. So I'm going to wrap it up now. There's a couple more in through to there. There's the last one as we go through to there. Speaking, that's from the training. Google reviews inside of there. And the last one is that you can start trying to do this, or you can keep going and plug your way through. But I just reckon what will end up happening is you'll lose more staff, you'll lose clients, and then potentially you're going to end up getting fined. I'm going to wrap it up now, and then good luck. Hopefully we can do some work together. I'll send you through the dates, and reach out to me just to confirm, because so I've booked for the next couple of weeks, but confirm which of the blocks. I'll send you through 2 different block options, and then we can go from there. Look forward to working with you. Cheers, guys.